Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery. Today I'm going to be sharing how I make teeny tiny mini daffodils. Starting off with supplies as always, I'm using two different colors of yellow for this project. I have a deep yellow and a pale yellow from Quilling Creations. And then I'm also going to be using a little bit of white. And also, this is my favorite green. This is leaf green from Craft Harbor, but any brand will do for any of these colors. You're also going to need a ruler and a slotted quilling tool, and that is sort of important for this project. You could use a needle tool for some of it, but some of it you'll also definitely need just a slotted tool, so I'm going to use it for the whole thing. I'm going to be using a paintbrush here and there, and as far as glues go, you can do this whole project with white Elmer's glue. If you'd like to do some of the parts later on with tacky glue, I'll mention that as well. And then a work board with some wax paper and a pin or two. You're going to need those towards the end. The first thing we're going to build for our daffodils is the little trumpet that goes in the middle of the flower. You're going to need your darker color yellow, your slotted tool, and some glue. Grab your ruler because you're only going to need 10 inches for this trumpet. So after you pull that off, go ahead and get your slotted tool out. Again, this is the part where you definitely need to have a slotted tool. We're going to be making essentially what is a cone shape, and I've made those many times with a long slotted tool, but this time, because it's a little tiny little thing, we're going to be just using a regular slotted tool. And to start, I'm going to let it build up in one spot. I'm not making a straight cone, which is kind of tapered from one end to the other. This one is going to have sort of a flat bottom, so I let it build up a bit first, and then after I have that shape, now I'm going to start overlapping a little bit so the shape gets a little bit longer. So again, it doesn't start off as a point right away and then I start going on a slant and building it longer and longer. I'm letting it build up a little bit in one spot, and then now you can really see it going. Again, it's getting a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and as it does that, it's getting a little bit wider. And then once I have about 1.5 inches or so left on my strip, I'm going to just wind that in place just to get a nice solid end to it as well. So it looks sort of like a little upside down flower pot at this point. Hold that shape in place when you're happy with it and put a tiny bit of glue on the end, just to keep it all in place. I like to, while it's on the slotted tool, sort of spin it a few times just to really get that glue in place and let that set for a second. And then I'm pretty happy with that shape. It's pretty small, maybe about 1/2 inch long, and that is just fine. To get it off the tool, you might want to twist as you go down. You don't really want to pull on the paper, just kind of twist the tool and it should pop off. This one got a little bit long again off when I was taking it off the tool, so you can see there I just pushed it back in just a little bit. I'm looking for that flat bottom like I mentioned before. Now, because this is a 3D shape, I don't want it to collapse on itself, so I'm going to put a little bit of glue all through. I'm doing the center there, but I could have done it on the outside as well. And then I'm going to get that paintbrush and just give it a little bit of wipe to spread it all out, and you can set that aside to dry. Now we're going to start building the petals of your daffodil. So we're going to need that strip of white and also that pale yellow, needle tool, glue, paintbrush, a pin, and then also your ruler just to measure out your strips of paper. We're going to need 10 inches of the pale yellow, and then we're also going to need 4 inches of the white. Once your strips are measured, you can take your slotted tool, put one end of the yellow in and start turning. This is just going to be a tight coil, so that means we turn it all the way from end to end without letting it open up at all. And we're actually going to be adding the white strip to the same coil as well. So this time I'm going to show how to do it in 2 separate pieces. So I'm going to roll up that yellow and put a little bit of glue on the end and seal that so that shape stays and keep it on the tool. And then I'm going to add the white right where that yellow piece stopped and do the same thing, wind it up and glue the end. Somebody asked me recently on a different video why I didn't just glue the strips together first, end to end, and then roll the whole thing up as well in one piece. That is totally fine if you want to do that. It will turn out more or less the same either way. Be sure to glue down the end of your white strip if you did do it in 2 different pieces when you get to the end of that color, and give it a little spin so that that glue sets on the end, and then you can take that coil right off your tool. We're going to shape it a little bit for one of the daffodil petals. What we're going to be doing is squeezing both ends of this shape to make what's known as a marquee in quilling. So we would just squeeze both sides of that shape. This can be a little tricky when you have a tight coil like this. It can hurt your fingers after a while. It really does take some strength just to pinch the end a little bit. What I like to do is make a little bit of a dome, and I'm using the bottom of a pin for this. I gently just push a little bit of the center out. I find that that gives it just a little bit more room to get that shape that we're looking for, to get that marquee and squeeze both sides. You don't want to push too far because the back of your shape will pop right out, but I like the domed kind of marquee that this technique gives anyway for these petals, so this works for me. I'm going to apply a little bit of glue and brush that out because this again is a 3D shape, but we don't want to lose it. I will let you know, again, like it hurts your fingers to do this. You are going to need to make 5 of these for each flower. So I wouldn't try to make too many of these flowers at one time because it'll start to be a bear after a while and you'll get pretty sore. Once you have the trumpet and the 5 petals made, you can go ahead and start forming your little tiny daffodil. And another trick I have to make this a little bit easier is grab your workboard and one of your straight pins, push it right through the center of your trumpet, and that'll keep it upright while you put your petals around. You can use either white glue or tacky glue for this part. If you do have that, it'll make it go a little bit quicker, but I'm just going to show that the white glue works just fine here. As you're putting together, you want the wider part of your trumpet to be facing up. Remember, we had a flat bottom for a reason, and that's so it sits really nicely here. And then you're going to want the open part of your petals to be facing up as well. And that's all there is to it. Just put a 5 around in sort of a star-shaped pattern, and that's all you have to your little daffodil. I wanted to add a little something extra to this tutorial, so I wanted to show an easy way to make flower buds for this daffodil as well. Here I'm showing a dome that was made from 10 inches of white followed by 4 inches of yellow. I did it the same way that I did the petals, but then just pushed it with a tool to make a nice dome. And then I also have made another dome from 16 inches of the leaf green that I showed earlier, and I used that same tool just to push it in a little bit and make a little pocket. You can use tacky glue to keep this shape, or you can use the white glue. Again, I'm using white glue just because I think it's something more people have, but either one will work just fine. You put a little bit in there, that's going to save the shape, but it's also going to keep the flower bud right in there. Just put it right inside. that's your little easy flower bud. These really don't need much as far as stems go. I just doubled up a couple of strips of the leaf green and just used them as basic curved but flat strips. I didn't really do anything to make them into any other shapes. I think you really want the star to be the little daffodils for this one. This project really has a soft spot in my heart because it's actually one of the very first tutorials I ever made up for my website, and it's also the flower, exactly same flower that my husband picked out of his mother's garden for me for our very first date like 15 years ago. So I'm a big fan of these ones. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions about how to make these little daffodils, let me know in the comments below, or any other thoughts. I'd love to hear them, and I always try to respond as quick as I can. If you missed any of the measurements for the papers, I will link to the original blog post down below in the description box, along with any of the tools that I used. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on my next video. And until then, I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.